Hello, beautiful souls. Oh my gosh, my face is very dark. One moment. There we go. Hi, beautiful souls. And to anyone who's new to this channel, a very warm welcome. My name is Arthur, and this channel is dedicated to helping people understand the difference between authentic non-duality and nonsense non-duality, and specifically how to recover from nonsense non-duality. You can find out more about this on my website, which I've just posted in the chat box and which will be linked below this video. I had quite an experience today, which really highlights how Neo-Advaita can drive you crazy. How and why. So, today was a really prayerful, meditative day for me. I didn't do any non-dual kind of meditation, but other forms of meditation and prayer. And it was just such a wonderful day. And I really kind of did a mini retreat today. And I really needed it. The last couple days were pretty crazy. And at a certain point in the day, I just started to feel peaceful and happy and joyous without any effort. I was just kind of walking down the street, feeling free and happy and joyful for no reason. And it just kind of continued and went on. And, as I would get more focused on things, it would kind of go, that peace and joy would go into the background. And then I would do some more prayer and meditation and boom, there it was again. And so it got really strong at a certain point. I was like, wow, I haven't felt this happy in a long time. I wasn't like, bebop and bouncy kind of happy, but just this deep joy. It's like it was coming from deep within myself. It's like, wow, this is really good. And hey, J. Jessif. And I just was feeling so good. And so my day just kind of flowed along. I drove down the street feeling joy, feeling peace. And again, it wasn't this kind of explosive joy. It was just this deep, but very solid joy. And I went out to get something to eat. And that was, then there was joy. And I went to go do another activity and there was joy. It was just kind of like just swimming in the sea of joy. And I wasn't really efforting anymore because, I'd done a lot of, like I said, I did a lot of prayer and meditation earlier in the day. And now it was just kind of like swimming along in this joyful river. And it was just so, even though I was doing things, there was such this deep stillness and peace. And I was just like, oh, this is really nice. And then I went and did another activity and was having a great time. And then I hit a bump. I was like, oh, well, not a big deal. But then I noticed that joy and peace just started to like run away. Like it wasn't just, I just watched it in about a 1 minute period go, zhunk, and it was gone. Like it had never even been there. And then I started to feel panic, like, oh no, I lost it, or oh no, what's going on? And I stepped out of the activity I was doing, and but I really felt yucky. Like, oh my gosh, I messed it up. I was having the best day ever, and now it's gone. And I felt this sinking kind of depression, but I caught it. I said, wait a minute. I know what's going on. And here's what's going, here's what happened, and here's why Neo-Advaita is so dangerous. So Neo-Advaita teaches a meditative practice that will get you into those elevated states. But Neo-Advaita doesn't teach detachment. Neo-Advaita doesn't teach an understanding that an elevated state is not enlightenment, that elevated state is just temporary. And Neo-Advaita doesn't teach sort of emotional management. Because as soon as it started to go and I started to panic, if I was into Neo-Advaita, I would have been, who is it who's panicking? I just would have done self-inquiry, and actually that would have just made it worse. Self-inquiry doesn't work for dense, thick emotions. It's not designed for that. There are other practices that are so much more helpful and so much more effective. So I'm driving back home feeling not quite like I'm in hell, but feeling just really yucky and really depressed. And I said, okay, here's what happened. Because of the spiritual practices, I got in an elevated state. Ramana Maharshi talked about this. He called it samadhi with effort, where the ego, and Ramana never used the word ego. That's a completely Western word, but the Vedic word is ahankarna. Ahankarna? My Sanskrit is so, the sense of identity. The sense of identity gets submerged, and then there's just peace and bliss. But the sense of identity isn't, or the identification hasn't been melted away. It's just been pushed down. So it's kind of like a temporary taste of enlightenment. And in his teaching, and in the teaching of any traditional Advaita teacher, they will very clearly tell you, hey, look, if you're feeling peace now, that's just a temporary state. That's not, you haven't arrived. You're tasting it. Whereas a Neo-Advaita teacher, if someone's like, I'm just feeling spaciousness now, they'll be like, that's it. You've got it. Hold on to that. In traditional Advaita Vedanta, it's recognized that in order to hold on to that, there's all sorts of preparatory practices that are needed to really prepare you, to be able to hold on to that, and also to navigate the mood swings that can happen with meditative practices. With Neo-Advaita, it's just inquire. But so I used my intellect, which is actually part of the traditional Advaita path. Intellect. So in traditional non-duality, they have the notion of the thinking mind and then a higher mind, which is able to discern things. And part of the path is actually training the higher mind. It's considered an absolute necessity. So my thinking mind was like, or lower mind was like, oh my God, I lost it. Oh my God, I messed up the day. I can't believe, I didn't make a big mistake. I just did. I just got carried away with something. And so that was just like running havoc. So I engaged my higher mind. I said, you know what? That was just a temporary feeling state. It wasn't enlightenment. Not that I was thinking it was, but you engage through your spiritual practices. You engaged, you got access to a temporary state. Like everything, it came and went. Nothing terrible happened. You didn't, you didn't wreck your life because it was feeling like paradise lost, right? And so this took me back to the 2 decades I was involved in Neo-Advaita, where it was constant mood swings, where there was like peace and spaciousness and joy and bliss, and then crash. And then this desperate trying to get back, and then peace and space and bliss, and then crash. And then feeling depressed, going to satsang, not really satsang, fake satsang, and the teacher saying, just inquire. Who is it that watches the coming and going of bliss? I'd be like, okay, I'm just gonna inquire, and then that wouldn't work, and so I'd go into depression, and then that might last a day or a week or a month or 6 months. Then I'd crawl out of it, and I would start practicing self-inquiry again, and I would get that high, that temporary peace, bliss, freedom, it would last for a minute, an hour, a day, occasionally a week. If I was really hardcore, maybe a month, and then crash, and then dejection, and what's going on, more false teaching, more scrambling, more reading Ramana compulsively, like, what did I do wrong? What am I missing? And just that whole cycle, on and on and on and on. And it led me to feeling, I can't say the word on TikTok, but it led, on YouTube, to wanting to unalive myself many, many times. Because it was just it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to have absolute peace and then lose it. But luckily, I knew what was going on today. And but I cycled. I did that for 20 years. It was miserable. I'm lucky to be alive. The most famous Neo-Advaita teacher on the planet has had 3 people actually end their lives at this teacher's center and had a 4th attempt to end their life. Why? Because they're caught in this crazy cycle, and then the teacher doesn't know how to get the person out of it. It's like the teacher leads them into this cycle and then doesn't know how to take them out of it. I've talked about this more about this channel often, this cycle, but I haven't experienced it in a long time. First of all, because I stopped doing all Neo-Advaita practices, and all non-dual practices. But also, I just haven't had the experience of causeless joy, peace, and freedom. But I really had it today, and it went on. I mean, I've had it for moments or minutes, but this went on and off for hours, a good 3 to 4 hours of it. So it'd been a long time since I really had tasted that. So I'd forgotten. And I'd forgotten not only the joy of that, like it's the best feeling and best experience in the world, just absolute peace, absolute freedom, except it's not absolute, but it seems absolute, and that's the problem. But then the crash that comes afterwards. I haven't crashed like that in, I don't even remember the last time, 5-6 years. Because it's not just a crash. It's heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, soul-crushing. On a human level, just imagine your deepest dream, whether you're an artist or you want to start a nonprofit, like something you've dreamed of your whole life. And then it's like all these amazing, you're a performance artist and you get the big break and you're going to get to perform on this giant stage to a sold out concert, or, your dream home. And then it just gets yanked out from underneath you. It's just like, collapse and devastation. And it's very painful. Luckily I didn't stay in it very long because I knew what was going on. Well, once I came back to my higher mind, then I knew what was going on. And I was able to accept, like, okay, this depression, and it lasted maybe 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, this is temporary too. And, but it was really the understanding of, okay, you had this temporary experience of freedom, this temporary experience of something similar to freedom or enlightenment, and that was taken away, and that was really hard. And that was temporary. This is temporary. You're going to be okay. And so let's see, I've got some comments here. Existential OCD. I don't know what existential OCD is. It teaches to always chase that high. I had one of those temporary highs and eventually fell into the deepest solipsistic hell. So I can't pronounce the adjective, but solipsism, I can't even pronounce that, is when you think you're the only one. And see, okay, thank you for saying that. So without proper preparation, Neo-Advaita can lead to delusions, just like this person. And I'm not criticizing you. I've had my own delusions that like, oh, I'm the only one that exists. In fact, this is a very common one. I've heard this from many people. I'm the only one that exists. Everyone else is an illusion. Or here's the greatest delusion. I'm enlightened. I didn't think that today, but I was kind of feeling it like, oh, I've arrived. Oh, this is what I've been looking for. I didn't think, oh, I'm enlightened or, oh, I've got it. But I was kind of thinking that a little bit, just a little bit. I was kind of leaning into that. So thank you for sharing that, Jay Joffs. That's not uncommon what you fell into. I've heard it from many people. In fact, I've had that thought sometimes, in a very expansive, blissed out state. I'm like, maybe I'm the only one. But luckily I didn't fall into that delusion, but I fell into all sorts of other delusions. So thank you so very much for dropping by. Hope this helps you understand Neo-Advaita a little bit and to steer clear of Neo-Advaita teachers. If you're new to this channel or this topic, I've got a whole website about Neo-Advaita, how to recognize it, how to recover from it. I wish all of you a beautiful, beautiful Neo-Advaita free day. Take care. Big love.